Hello and welcome to Foxii Fighters. I'm joined today by my three co-hosts, Black Hat.
Howdy.
Jonathan.
Hi.
And Mr. Redman.
Afternoon, evening, and good night, lads.
Today we will be doing a breakdown of all the bots and doing our first look at what groups each bot are in, and we'll be discussing our opinions and our thoughts about each one.
I, for one, am very excited to see how Foxii Fighters unfolds and grows as we go along. I mean, this is testing a very new and somewhat experimental system which I have had the pleasure to create as a whole, and I am ecstatic to see the evolution of damage and the evolution of Roblox robot combat I suppose be shown on full display here in your wonderful tournament, Foxii.
Yes, thank you. And with that, we'll get right on to the first robot. Now, bots within this event will be split into one of four groups: Ruby, Emerald, Sapphire, and Topaz. Then in their groups, each bot will fight every other bot in the group. This will determine our winners and who will advance through to the finals. Entering the Sapphire group first, we have Howler, all the way from Hong Kong, built by Hobo Drew, and weighing in at an incredible 1,194 SGS. This Crusher hopes to bite through the competition.
Howler is just one of those machines that, when you enter the arena, all eyes are upon it. Its design, beautiful, its colours, outstanding, it's something completely out of this world, mythical even.
I have seen in a few test fights it's been able to bite down and pick things up, and properly just keep them suspended in the air and drive them around.
Oh.
So it'll be able to get definitely some extra hazard damage in, as well as the damage from those deadly teeth.
Yeah, I know Hobo Drew is a proven competitor, definitely. I have seen in testing, there are some points to it where it's not as defensive. It can be more vulnerable in certain places, like the sides and the rear, but if you go into that front, it's pretty much game over for you.
Crushers in this system are deadly, especially when they get a hold of you. And once you play their game, you are at a mercy to their rules. And I think Howler has been one of those machines that will certainly make most robots play by their game. It's on the hunt.
Just echoing what Red said, it's just a very striking design, a good example of how the standard of building and has moved on so much over the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years. I've not seen a whole lot of it in the arena fighting, but it's a presence that it makes itself known. It's just a very interesting robot to watch, very exciting robot to watch, and just listening to you talk about the way that you've seen it fare so far in the test fights, very, very promising. Looking forward to seeing more out of it.
So first up for the Ruby group, Nicky Dusty Owl representing Team Motor City and his robot Cerberus. Standing in at 1,191 SGS, only 9 off the maximum limit, and there's plenty of damage to be done with the crushing head and dual spinning blades. It's surely one to look out for.
You know me, I like robots with faces. It's got another face. It's a wonderfully intricate looking design, and I believe got 2 seats for the controls, so a lot going on behind the scenes with this particular robot. Hopefully it doesn't get a little too out of hand in the arena for the operators, but like Rob said, plenty of damage potential with those saws, and looking forward to seeing how that vertical jaw deals with the opponents.
I, for one, of course, am in love with Cerberus. Ever since I first saw it, it's such a unique design that emanates Howler almost, really. It's dual saws and crushy design. It's the perfect sort of grab and hold machine, though I have to say that it does look a bit fragile in certain areas. I'm hoping that the weapon system will come into play before any kind of big hits come against those sides there, but all in all, definitely a flashy machine and one to watch.
Yes, I do have to say, I've noticed a couple of vulnerabilities. I can imagine those wheel pods could come off if something hits them in the wrong place, but outside of that, I can definitely see it maybe getting a bite with the jaw, pinning its opponent in place, and then bringing the swords down. I'm looking for that weapon synergy from it, and especially with those wheel pods being able to rotate full 360 degrees, it's going to be maneuverable, it's going to be one to watch, I think.
There's a lot that I can say that other people already have. It is one of my favorite designs. I definitely think there are vulnerabilities, but when you look at it, if it goes to the front, it's pretty much guaranteed it's going to do something. You have those swords, you have the crushers, there's pretty much no escaping it.
Representing the United States in the Emerald group, coming in from the builder Garlic, it is Akira, Weighing in at 1,195 SGS, this newcomer to the robot combat scene has proven itself many times with this destructive blade. Will it prove itself here in Foxii Fighters?
Personally, I think it's got a good chance. That blade's definitely got some good damage potential, and the really thick wedge at the back can provide some pretty good defense. So it's got aggression at the front, it's got defense at the back. The wheels might be a little bit of a weakness. If it comes up against anything that isn't going to hit from overhead, it stands a good chance of winning.
See, from what I've seen, the robot is really low, which has to be advantage to it, because there's going to be so many bots that it will just be able to take full advantage of, get to the wheels, get to any part that will really harm their opponents.
I just want to latch on to one of the words there in your introduction, Red. You said newcomers. How new are we talking here with Garlic?
Quite new, I have to say. In the current RC group, it is Killbots is its first ever competition, and so far it has proven itself to be destructive and well driven, since it has utilised that wedge numerous times to get its opponent into a vulnerable position and then swing around with that blade. I think we'll see that strategy in this competition.
Very good. It's a very promising looking start. If I say this Killbot's first event, and it's a very promising looking robot, very promising start to this career in the RRC, and doesn't sound like inexperience is going to be a problem based on what you said about the Killbots performance. Yeah, it looks like a very nice start to a campaign.
Representing England in the Emerald Group, we have Tough as Nails, coming from the builder Texodus. A replica of the Robot Wars design. It proved itself in that competition. What about over here?
I probably am biased in saying that Tex is really one of my favorite builders, and Robot is. As you said, it is a replica, we know it's done well, and it's right at the limit of weight at 1200. That crushing power is incredible with some robots in the arena, so really I think an underdog might be a bit of an understatement.
Yes, I can definitely see it getting a very good clamp on some opponents, driving them around. It's got these little things at the ends of the claws that can lift the whole thing up so it can properly clamp and then slightly lift its opponents off the ground. So definitely getting those wheels off the ground so it's got full control. It can take them to the hazards, it can take them maybe even onto the shelf if it's lucky enough. I definitely think Tough as Nails is one to watch.
Tex has been doing this for quite some years now. He knows how to win, and replicas are his things. He's going to get Tough as Nails a few victories in this event, and like I say, he knows how to do it. And he knows how to build the robots that'll let him do it. And this is another one.
Ever since Tex walked onto the scene and pretty much broke the meta with Ming the Merciless back in the olden days of Realm of Titan, Tex has always brought something exciting, flashy, and without doubt memorable to the party. And I'm hoping Tough as Nails is going to have plenty of these moments inside of this arena.
Up next for the Ruby group, one of the more contemporary designs in Avalanche. It may have its weaknesses with semi-exposed wheels, but the undercutting blades make up for where it lacks and can provide some heavy damage in combat.
Now this robot just looks like you've just taken a piece of the future and just slapped it into the arena. It is sleek, it is modern, it is honestly, I think, a perfect blend of attack and defense. Kind of like the way four-body spinners utilize their entire design in order to attack and hurt their opponents. This robot utilizes both front and back ends to just dominate the arena and make it difficult for you to kind of flank it. It seems that wherever you're really going to go, if driven well, you're just going to be meeting weapon.
I do know that this robot has 3 different weapon configs, each one only increasing in power, ranging from 100 SGS to 200 SGS. So it can add that extra little bit of armor against tougher opponents, but still be able to dish out quite a mean hit, even with the lighter weapons. I think its only real weakness that I've managed to identify with it is that sometimes the weapon can catch the floor and cause it to have trouble spinning up, but outside of that, I see it as quite a deadly competitor.
Yeah, as you said with the configs, there's plenty of choice, and you said that they're all more and more damaging. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what the driver decides to do, because strategy could really help them and get them to win more matches.
I'm going to be honest, I've always found undercutters to be a bit, I think they're witchcraft. I can't get my head around them. Like Foxy said, there's a risk of them catching on the floor, but I suppose the builder has to take that into account with the design, the driving has to take that into account. Having the different configs there, different options for different battles and different opponents, I think opens up more opportunities to use the design more effectively, but for me, I can't get my head around them, so it's good to see that other people can.
In the Emerald Group, representing the United States, weighing in at 1,197 SGS from Epic Doge, it is Serpent. This slithery little serpent comes into this arena with a shockingly powerful flipper. Will it snake underneath its opponents and toss them out the arena?
I definitely think it's got a good chance at getting under and getting some good ooters. The flipper power is pretty impressive. The gas power might be a slight weakness, considering limited flips, but if Doge knows how to drive it well, I don't think that'll be a weakness in the slightest. The wedges at the front definitely look low, and the self-righting power isn't enough that it'll deal itself damage upon landing. So all around, this is a very well-rounded bot, and I'm looking forward to seeing it compete.
You know, the gas-powered flipper really will help it out. I feel like I'm going to say this about a lot of robots, but this one especially is one of my favorites in terms of design. It's very sleek, and in the arena it's so fast. It just has such an ability to get around the opponent and take it out.
I have to say, I love its design. If everything about it has been intrinsically crafted to give this kind of element, this feel that this is a Viper. This is this machine that you do not want to tread on. Even despite its limited flips, I think that every flip will count with whenever it comes to this machine, and every time it does, you can bet that its opponent will end up in its fangs.
It is a very lovely little robot. I think when you look beyond the more recent build techniques, the unions, when you look beyond the more up-to-date Roblox graphics, I think what you've got is a very traditional little flipper robot, and a lot of pedigree comes with that design. It's so many years of dominance for that kind of robot within the RRC, and yet another robot, just a lovely looking little robot embracing that traditional design and hopefully putting it to very good effect with that gas flipper.
The Ruby Group reveals continue with Counterpoint, a spinner lifter combination, and one of two Canadian-led teams in the field. A rookie roboter in 40 ounce is surely no disadvantage, as it stands at only 5 SGS below the limit and has a powerful undercutting spinner and can throw its opponents around with the forks up front.
What is not to love about Counterpoint? It is a design that is built with the best of both worlds in mind. When its controlling days are over in the arena, it just swaps back to its blade, and if the blade falls off, well, it's just going to flip over its opponent, you see?
You know, even for a rookie, I think 40 ounce is pretty much one of the better builders in the RRC. The detail on the robot is absurd, and that comes from both a design and function standpoint. The forks up front to lift are going to be so useful, they'll be so agile with getting bots underneath them. And the spinner has been very nearly perfectly crafted to just take out whatever it needs to. It'll definitely go after wheels, any parts that can be vulnerable. I think it's one to look out for.
It is a multi-tool of a machine, and adaptable, I think, even in the worst of situations.
Yeah, just echoing what both Red and Rob said, it's just a very purposeful design, got both weapons, so if one weapon doesn't work out in a particular fight against a particular opponent, just go with the other one, keep your options open. The build of it, for some reason it reminds me of quite a few Robot Arena 2 designs. Not necessarily a bad thing, because if the designs work in one platform, maybe they'll work in another.
I do very much agree. I think the dual weaponry could come into play in a few fights. Could test out one, find it's not working, switch to the other, and then end up winning because of it. But then again, there is also the chance that the exact opposite might happen. So I do think 40 needs to be careful with his driving choices. Another advantage I see with this bot is the fact that it is not actually two-wheel drive. There are two smaller hidden wheels inside the chassis. So even if those two bigger ones outside get ripped off, it's still able to keep fighting. Combine that with the fact it can switch its front forks for a plow to defend against heavier spinning weapons. I think it's a very versatile robot, and I think it could make a very deep run in this competition.
The first robot coming to you from the Topaz group, all the way from Canada. Wave Runner, just a smidge under 1200 SGS, with a front-hinged electric lifter and a very retro-looking graphic design to this robot. Two different configurations on the weapon, also has a fork option for the front end, depending on the opponent that it faces. But yeah, just a lovely little graphic design with the blue and black. Very sort of retro, kind of arcade game feel to me. I'm interested to hear what my colleagues think of it.
Now, the thing that I really love about it is interesting to see a top hinge on the top of the robot. I think that's not been done too often, maybe because it's not as good as rear hinge, but certainly it's nice to see the variety is definitely there. I do agree in saying that this robot just looks so good.
Yeah, I have to say that it's definitely got kind of like a Tron vibe when I take a look at it. And the front plow, of course, never really seen any kind of design where it's kind of got a diamond at the front. So that's a rare sight to see when it comes to these designs here. Though I have to say, aside from its very, I suppose, cyberpunky kind of neon style to it, nothing much jumps out to me in terms of its weaponry design. I mean, there may be just beauty and simplicity here, though, so I'm hoping it will do quite well in the tournament.
The fork config really reminds me of older bots from Robot Wars, like Series 5 or Series 6. Again, maybe not a strategy thing, more cosmetic, but I think it's definitely a fun robot, and I can see it doing pretty well.
It's got 6-wheel drive, which I mean, I expect it to be able to push most other things around, and comparing that with its weapon type, which is a very control-heavy weapon, the front hinge lifter, I'm expecting it to try and really take the fight to its opponent, make use of the hazards, maybe just pin it against the wall and just win fights on control and aggression. It doesn't have that much in the damage department, but I honestly don't think that's a downside for it.
In the Emerald Group, weighing in at 1,198 SGS, coming in from England, it is Mundo. A robot based on the League of Legends character. Can it bring its strange and powerful energy from the game into the arena?
Yeah, that sounds exciting then. I'm interested to see how it fares, how it compares to the character that it's based on.
You know, for me, it's very reminiscent of some of the older robots that we've had in the RFC or NRO days back around 2014 to 2016. It's definitely an interesting design. The flipper axe combo might be able to help it a good bit with it being able to flip. Not too powerful, but it can get the job done in certain circumstances. So it could very well be one to look out for.
I do agree that the weapon synergy could be quite an interesting thing to see in fights. The axe flipper combination could be quite nice. I think it could definitely help it out in certain circumstances. A couple of weaknesses I can see with it is the back and sides of it are very flat. That the only thing it really has to get under opponents to use that flipper is the wedge at the front. It's a very boxy design. I think it could be vulnerable to horizontal spinners, but I think outside of that, I think it's a pretty well-rounded machine.
Like Rob said, it's very reminiscent of all the designs that we've seen before. Not saying that it's an outdated design, but a tried and tested design, and an interesting combination of weapons that should see it quite well.
Definitely have to agree with Foxy here. There are some notable weaknesses when it comes to the edges here in the design, that it has a fair few catching edges, but what's not to love about the design here, Mundo? I mean, the Orc Corp has made some very charismatic machines, and this one just shows just his energy, his passion, and his creative drive, and I'm hoping with this double weapon setup, he will have more than one way to bring home those wins.
So the next robot for the Ruby group is Terabyte. So one of two full-body spinners in this field, the only French robot. Plenty of potential here, I'd say, as the spinning teeth are right at the bottom, so it acts a bit like an undercutter.
What is not to love about Terabyte? This machine is dangerous. I've seen it compete many times in the circuit under this system, and it has torn apart competitor after competitor. It is one to look out for and genuinely one to be afraid of.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with a 360 degrees of attack range. You know, there's no way of sneaking up on a robot like Terabyte, but just like Avalanche and Undercutter Disc that we had earlier on, I'm just wary of a possible control issue, a possible issue of it going out of control if it just snags something at the right angle. I'm sure, though, that Mystic will be able to drive around any such issues, but certainly it's got that, it's got attack and defense going for it.
Yes, I do think having the shell is a really big strength, as it acts as both the robot's offense and defense, meaning it doesn't need to put weight into armor as well. It can put all of that in the weapon, giving it such a powerful spinner compared to some of the others. It's definitely going to hit hard, and there isn't really a way, as John said, to attack it without also getting hit. From testing, I've seen that the pole on top can also self-right it pretty quickly, so even if it does get flipped, that's not really too big of a weakness for it. I definitely think this is one that's going to be a really strong competitor within its group.
See, for me, it's very old school, gritty. There's nothing fancy to it. You've got quite simple teeth on the robot. No real decorations. You know, it's been made to do a job, and it does that job very well. I can see it going far in its group.
Next up in the Topaz group is a robot and a driver that I'm actually already quite familiar with, Xiaoxilong, built by Prime, who's from Scotland, weighing 1,193 SGS, and multiple configs on this one, and a little minibot. What's not to love about a little shark-themed minibot? But yes, I've seen plenty out of Xiaoxilong already from the back end of my competitive career, and plenty of potential in a damage environment, and I'm sure it'll continue its strong performances in this event as well.
It's a tested design as time's gone on. It's won a couple of tournaments. I want to say, for me at least, this is the first time I've seen it with configs with those wedges. Pontoons definitely for me seem interesting, as there's a lot of bite in the front from that shark tooth. Definitely a lot of punch can be packed with the pontoons.
Xiaoxilong is a design that is evolving with every competition it's been in, and these configs are just the newest iteration, the newest and the next step when it comes to the damage meta. I have seen Xiaoxilong in the arena, and I can say that while it's met more of its match today in a few test battles, considering it used to dominate way back when, I still think that it is a confident and powerful vert that will definitely get some dicey wins at the end of the day.
It's what we've known with Xiao. It should just, regardless of who it's facing, be able to just get good hits, deal a lot of damage, and continue its success.
I have to second that. I do think continuing Xiao is the current champion for my event. It won This Is Fighting Robots. I believe it beat you, Red, with Lemon.
Just beat me here.
Yes, in the grand final of the event. It'll be good to see it hopefully continue its reign of terror. That shark tooth spinner, as Rob mentioned, looks deadly. It looks designed to get the best bite a spinner can get. And I definitely think with the two different wedge setups, it's got a lot of different coverage for different designs. The minibot could be that perfect little bit of nuisance just to distract the opponent to give Xiao that knockout hit. Definitely think throughout its group, it's going to be a deadly one, and it's going to be one of the top bots.
In the Emerald group, weighing 1,197 SGS from the USA, it is Soundwave, blasting its way into the arena. It's certain to break the glass with that powerful spinner.
Yeah, Soundwave and Jazz, it comes from a family with a lot of experience in robot combat, both IRL and on Roblox. It's one of the most beautiful designs in the competition. Love the colors. The spinner's got a good amount of reach, and as well that Shremek is so important on the top because it's really just able to help out so much, because these spinners can be unstable, and if it goes over, for a lot of them, that's just it, that's the end of the match. But for Soundwave, it's very lucky to have that.
Yes, I do think that self-righter gives it just that second life that it needs. I think it'll be a very helpful thing to have, definitely. With the way the spinners can sometimes gyro a bit in fights, there's a chance Soundwave could just deflect off a wedge wrong and be upside down. Some of the other horizontal spinners spring to mind when that could be the end of the fight for them. Soundwave, while I think the self-righter might be slow, might still be a bit of a vulnerability. I do think it being able to get back in that fight will definitely give it another lifeline, and it needs that.
Yeah, I'm after we finish up with this, I'm actually going to have a word with all the other guys and girls fighting in the Emerald group and just see if we can agree not to damage Soundwave, because this is a gorgeous looking robot and I don't want to see anything happen to it.
I mean, it is a sight to behold. Jazz is skilled with 3D modeling, and it just shows here in the design of Soundwave as a whole. I am thrilled and excited to see this machine compete, because I don't think any opponent will really come away in one piece facing up against it. It's got style, it's got sheer ferocity, it has got everything that you could possibly want in a horizontal spinner. Let's just hope that horizontal spinner stays on, though.
Yeah, I might have to take a bit of a risk and see it suffer a little bit of damage to see what kind of damage it can deal with its own weapon.
So following suit with IRL experience from Soundwave comes Silly Goose for the Ruby group. Very experienced IRL fighter, has been in Norwalk, Robot Havoc, Sephi with Silly Goose. I can't say it's not one of my favorite designs. I love the character, the 360 lifter, only one in the field, very useful, and in the right circumstances can be powerful and definitely can help to farm some wins.
This robot, I love its personality. I mean, to not, of course, go against the obvious here, it's a duck clone. It is a duck design, but it's duck as if it were made to fight in a world war. It looks durable, it looks brutal, and it looks angry to say the least. I mean, it might say it's a silly goose, but I don't think this one is buggering around.
Yes, definitely not. That front plow is so durable, it can take so much punishment. It's just a defensive brick of a machine. Nothing is going to kill it.
Yeah, what you're looking at here, I think, is the definitive Roblox Robot War or Robot Combat robot. The design is just staggering. I don't think we're going to see a better robot than this for the next 10, 15, 20 years. It's just sublime. I think you've got your champion right here. Seriously though, it's got a face, so I love it.
So yeah, from what Foxii said, yeah, it is incredibly durable, great, agile, speedy. But for me personally, I just have to point out, it's been fully catted. It's such a great design, and so I've heard it's got some surprises up its sleeve, so I can't wait to see those.
Coming to you from England, weighing at 1,194 SGS, it's Barracuda. Get it? It's like Barracuda, except it's Barracuda. Now, they always say that sequels aren't as good as the original, but let me bring your attention to Barracuda. I've seen the original in action. I've seen how it's upgraded and developed from that original Barracuda. And this is the whole thing with Roblox Robot Combat. There's the evolution of robots, the progression from one design to the next. Surely it's got to be better. Surely it's got to be refined. Let's see what it can do in this event.
I definitely think Barracuda is an interesting design among the other spinners, considering it's the only one that's at an angle. The angled horizontal can have some very weird physics, but I have a feeling Barracuda might be able to use that to its advantage. I've seen it be able to sort of hit robots up as well as away from it, and while it does take quite a bit of recoil, I do think that weird deflection angle could definitely throw some of the opposing drivers off and make them take a little bit longer to just regather and get ready for the next hit. It'll give Barracuda time to spin up, and it will definitely be able to get back and get more hits. I do think the defensive plow at the back as well could help it in battles. A good balance of offense and defense.
I was there when I saw the first iteration of Barracuda, and it surprisingly was not only brutal, but durable in its matches. It fought up against numerous bots at once and still seemed to come out scot-free. It seemed incredibly durable, and it's a different system, different meta. I don't know if we'll get the same kind of result out of this design, but looking at it just straight away, there's been such a vast improvement. It's no longer square, it's changed to a rectangle, it's got a lot more, and it looks durable. I do like the angled spinner design. It's definitely going to be able to touch those robots that seemingly are going to be thin enough to not be touched. You aren't, I think, going to get rid of this robot anytime soon in your match.
Next up in the Sapphire group, we have Abyss, a clamp lifter design built by that Discord guy, brother of Autobot Jazz. Weighing in at 1,189 SGS, this bot is hoping to bite down, pick up, and control all of its opponents.
Yeah, this is not a robot that you want to bump into in the dark in an alley somewhere, is it? With those sharp teeth and those red eyes, certainly a mean-looking bot, and a lot of the experience of the IRL robotics scene being put to use here with the design and certainly with the strategy in the arena. Weight distribution should all be very, very good for lifting up the opponent and hauling them around the arena like a trophy.
Yeah, TDG's got quite a bit of pedigree with his designs. We've seen before in other tournaments that he has the potential to make winning stuff. I think Abyss is another perfect example of that. Very well armored. Only real potential danger is those rear wheels being exposed, but with how fast Abyss moves, really, it's going to be a challenge to get to them. So that really helps for it. And yeah, the grabber has proven itself to be good, so definitely one to fear if I were going up against it.
This is a machine that I think you have nightmares about. It's scarily designed. A clamping machine that really bites you from the way it looks. It's just a almost cryptid shape, and I for one am loving this horror control aesthetic in the arena, because this monster is going to keep chasing you down.
I do have to agree there. I think it's going to be quite a very fun fight, seeing it definitely take control of the opponent. It looks like some sort of creature out of like a creepypasta or something akin to that. And I definitely think it's going to be one to watch. I think if it gets a grab of you, there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. Again, we have another bot in the Sapphire group, coming from Wales, built by Swindobots, weighing in at 1,196 SGS. We have the giant vertical spinner of Hu Wang, with 6 hinged forks at the front. It's going to be low to the ground, it's going to get under, hit and damage its opponent. It's one to watch.
Hu Wang is a physical manifestation of Swin's growth in the Roblox scene. This machine used to be a shoddily put together design, and now look at it. It is beautiful. It is creatively made, textures are wonderful, and it is a solid looking vert. I have been told and promised that it will no longer suddenly ping itself around and throw itself out the arena. I love those configs as well. It's surely going to be an adaptable machine, though I don't think those wedgets will last for long.
Yeah, those certainly that fork config looking quite vulnerable there. But yeah, just echoing what Red said about the progression of Swin as a builder and as a roboteer in general. I think when you're building a vertical spinner or an egg beater or anything like that, it is tempting in the early days to make something just so powerful that who cares if you ping around the arena as long as you obliterate your opponent. But to ring that in and bring that back and make something more controlled and acknowledge that you don't need something too powerful, you just need something controlled and refined. It's a great indicator of any roboteer's progression, but certainly how Swin has evolved.
So there's been other bots in the competition with configs, obviously, people want to use them to try and get the most out of their machines. I think Huos definitely are some of the more interesting ones. They are built purposefully, which if you have configs you want to do, but it feels to me like they've been refined and they've been built with certain robots in mind.
In particular, the longer forks on that overhead weapon config, I think they could be quite difficult to deal with if used correctly and positioned well, because it's just going to get under and trap the opposing robots on them, so it can just slam it into walls, dictate it wherever Hu wants the opponent to go. The robot's got a lot more chance of doing what it needs to do, getting those KOs.
I'm very happy to be announcing the robots for this Ruby group because the amount of diversity we have is insane, and there's nothing more diverse than one bot type in this whole competition, and that is exactly what Neola is. 5 part clusters, 2 in the arena at once. You've got so much variety in the weapons. You've got a flamethrower, drum, horizontal spinner, lifter, and another lifter, which I believe is front hinge and rear hinge. What can you say? They're adorable, but they're also so damaging. Really hard to try and fight and fend off from.
I have a soft spot for clusters. Always and completely. And this cluster is just a step above the rest. It is, I think, a modern evolution of the cluster, a Swiss army cluster. It is interchangeable. Only 2 of these bots, of course, appear in the arena, but it's 2 robots that have been chosen to fight you specifically, meaning that Rose here kind of gauges their opponent and kind of knows who they want to choose to basically pick apart your weaknesses and take advantage of you as a whole.
Yeah, like Rob said, this robot is adorable, but looks can be deceiving. It's a versatile robot because, as Red said, there's 5 options available to Rose going into a battle. She'll take 2 into the arena, and what kind of chance do you stand when there's so many different possibilities, different combinations of robots? But has AI gone too far? Because these robots have emotions. They feel when they're attacking you. And as much as I like robots with faces, I find that a little bit weird.
As the other three have said, this is a clusterbot, and as Red said, this is the evolution of a clusterbot, I think. I think something that I've picked up on a few other clusters is they have very obvious weaknesses within their weapon types. At its fundamentals, robot combat is a game of rock, paper, scissors. You always want that weapon type that will give you the upper hand against your opponent. So what Rose has done is she's designed something that no matter what you have, there is always a counter. And with two of them in at once, it can provide the perfect amount of multitasking for an opponent to just overwhelm them completely and enable her to just completely dominate and win fights. I definitely think Neola is one of the top in its group and maybe in the entire field. Now, our next entry into the Sapphire group comes from England, from the builder Hopin, standing in at a very impressive 1,499 SGS. This shuffling spinner is hoping to devastate opponents. It's definitely got that extra weight in the weapon. The mobility might be a slight issue. I can see that the slowness of the shuffle being a slight vulnerability, but I think Hop's been around long enough to know how to counter that. So honestly, I think this is a very well-rounded bot. The extra weight has been used very well, so I don't think the mobility will be that much of an issue.
Yeah, Leviathan is built like a tank, both in durability and to an extent movement, but really, when you have a spinner that powerful, you don't need to move fast. You let the robots come to you, and there's two configs, I believe the other's a bar, one is a key. There's so much damage to be dealt, but the only thing to watch out for is, unlike the Roboteer, that weapon is quite tall. It has a chance of robots just getting under it, and that's really the main disadvantage. But other than that, very powerful. I expect it to do well.
Yeah, so 1,499 SGS, almost making full use of that weight bonus open to it, and I think it's very easy to be deceived when it comes to building a shuffler or a walker robot and think, oh great, the increased weight, I'm going to be unbeatable, but you do still have to put a lot of attention and work into that robot to make it a formidable force. And the weapon absolutely ticks all the boxes when it comes to being a potent force in the arena.
Leviathan, I want to say, is more akin to that of a very dangerous doorstop than a fast and quick machine. It's a robot that I think is going to be difficult to push around and bully, considering it has such a wide range of attack with its spinner. If you want any chance of kind of manipulating any sort of way, you need to kind of avoid that blade.
And next robot joining the Sapphire group, weighing in at 1,198 SGS, from England, built by Botbuster, we have the Egg Beater Spinner of Electro Motivation. With two front wedge setups, this bot is ready to take on a wide number of opponents and is looking to bring some damage to the event.
I love Electro Motivation, and I feel like it's a very unique design with the funnel color palette, and I just love this like electrical kind of theme to it all. It's a very wonderful design, but it's had such a rocky record in damage competitions so far. Everyone it's been in, it's had a rough going in competitions, and that's usually come down to the fact that those weapon supports just tend to go away, and the part of the supports of the Shreemic also just get ripped off. A lot of parts, I suppose, can be fragile on Electro Motivation. I'm hoping that in this competition, he's fixed that, and we have a much more durable version of Electro Motivation.
Yeah, Electro Motivation is another example of the evolution of robots in competition. This isn't its first tournament by far. I've been around quite a while when it's been fighting. I've seen how it's progressed, and I think really this is the best it's been. Two configs. For me personally, I'd say the wedge would be the way to go for most fights. I'm not too sure about those, I guess you could call them teeth on the other config, but very damaging spinner. The Shreemic, just like with Soundwave, is such a big help, and I can see it just tearing all of its opponents apart bit by bit.
Botbuster is one of those guys in the RRC who's In the short time he's been around, he's produced a lot of different robot designs, and almost feels like he's not really focused on any one design or any one series of robots. But with Electro Motivation, he has at least made that little bit of progress and focus on one design. So good to see him focusing a little bit more on one design over another. And I guess that comes with experience and finding out what works when you're starting up and trying different things. And clearly with Electro Motivation, he's found something that he believes works. So it should see him well through the event.
Despite Botbuster's incredibly large arsenal of robots, the few that he's decided to come back to and give second lives to, such as Electro Motivation, they're kind of becoming his home calling. While it might have a very mixed record, it's definitely had some ups and some downs. I think with the slightly changed designs from the past version, that this new one could definitely be one of the ups of its career.
Right, another robot in the Topaz group, and another robot from the USA. It's Quake, a hammer robot, and one of the lightest robots in the event. In fact, I think it might even be the lightest robot at 1,187 kilos. Now, hammer robots, to me, have never been that effective, but to look at that hammer, to look at how just sharp and pointy it is, surely that's going to give its opponents a headache. It's going to be interesting to see just how it performs compared to the hammer robots that I've seen in the past, and this kind of prejudice, I suppose, I have against hammer robots. Hopefully it'll prove me wrong, and hopefully it'll deal a bit more damage than I'm expecting it to, but it's a great looking robot, and I would like to see it.
Quake is bloody gorgeous, plain and simple, and not only is it gorgeous, it looks devastating. I mean, that hammer looks longer, I think, than expected. It looks like it's got an impressive reach out the front there. It's got a great plow for deflection. I want to say those the backside supports there of the wheels look a bit fragile, looking a bit thin, but this machine as a whole, I think, is well put together. I think you are going to really struggle if you come up against this robot, and you're really going to have to try your hardest to break a machine that looks like it's prepared to be broken.
Yeah, the piercing red eyes at the front, surprisingly, are the least intimidating part about this robot. As it's been mentioned, that hammer, the spikes, really going to help it with getting that extra bit of damage. The only concern for me is the reach that the hammer can get could be a bit of a disadvantage depending on how close the robots are that it's fighting, but otherwise it's a solid machine, very well built. I'm excited to see how it does.
Hammers are one of my favourite weapon types. I love just the sight of something being smacked repeatedly over and over from the top, because it's where some people just don't think about putting armour, because you've got these big heavy spinners that will hit you on the sides or with a vert near the bottom. There's not many weapon types that hit overhead. Quake is going to be able to get some good shots, destroy top armour, get maybe some batteries, some gas bottles. I do think there's a good chance this bot is going to cause some quick and some unexpected knockouts. And next bot joining the Sapphire group, weighing in an almost perfect 1,199 SGS. Coming from India, we have Jokester. A very unique take on a spinner. It'll be interesting to see what it does.
Yeah, Jokester is fast, agile. Those wedges are something to fear. And not only is it a spinner, but it's a punching spinner. And that's what really makes me happy. You know, iron like Mike Tyson, this thing can knock you out easily. You put it in any sort of fight, I reckon it can win. It's so capable of pushing you to the wall and just punching, beating you down. Honestly, I can see so much potential. It may be called Jokester, but believe me, it is not a joke. This is a fierce competitor, and you have to be afraid of it if you're fighting it.
I know the builder, I know Grizz, and I helped D&D design Jokester, and this machine is a tank through and through. I mean, look at it. It looks like the bloody Batmobile, just from like seeing it from far away. It's got wedge slits, side panels. I mean, every detail has been placed on this machine, and no expense has been spared. I think this robot's going to come in and do some bloody damage here, and even if its weapon goes, I think it's just going to be like Tornado from Robot Wars. It's just going to shove you around, push you everywhere, and maybe put you in a situation where you do not want to be.
I cannot remember the last time a phrase or a pair of words that I heard in the RRC made me as happy as punching egg beater. I hope this weapon lasts as long as possible in every battle that Jokester takes part in, because I just want to see what this can do. It just looks like it's like a tank, but it's a punching egg beater. That sounds wonderful to me.
Yes, I very much have to echo what John said there. I think the punching egg beater it has a couple of unique advantages that other spinners do not have. With a more traditional style vert, you can drive straight at it and get that weapon stopped. The fact that the spinner, it starts farther back, means if you drive right at it, it's still going to be able to get up to speed and still, when it punches forward, deliver what could always be a knockout blow. I think there's a chance any hit that thing gets will be the last hit of the fight. I think it's a lethal looking machine, and it's a brick as well from what we've seen of it. I do think it's going to be one to watch within its group, and as I've said with a couple others, I think it's one of the top in the field.
In the Emerald Group, weighing in at 1,200 SGS, coming from England, it is Skynet. A Scorpius-inspired machine. Will it go through the competition and emanate its BattleBot's counterpart?
You know, variety is the spice of life, and the great thing about Skynet is the variety that it has. Those different wedge configs are so useful. You may not think it, but they really are, just for the sheer amount of longevity you can get and the preparedness against your competitors. The spinner is damaging, we absolutely know that. The flamethrower is just so capable at damaging you. It may not be able to take off parts, but it can certainly get you close. It's just very powerful, and it's something to be afraid of when you're fighting it.
I think Skynet is I think it's more of an underdog of the competition. It hasn't had the greatest success in some of its past events, but it's been able to take on some more orthodox designs and definitely just teach them a lesson. I think it's got an answer to more different types of weapon now. My only concern is the two very exposed wheels. I think they could be a very good point of attack for opposition, but I think if Crystal can drive well and she can protect those wheels and keep the robots in front of her at all times, easy win.
I love Skynet. Skynet has proven itself to be quite the underdog in the earliest days of the damage scene, and now its design has evolved to this just immensely designed machine. It is wonderful, and I love Scorpios and BattleBots, so seeing like Crystal pull out all the stops and create this design is just wonderful. I'm a child in Candyland, man. It's great. I'm really hoping to see Skynet succeed, and I really want to go far because I think they can bring that underdog energy they brought from previous competitions and push it further into some kind of stardom.
I just hope that Crystal doesn't spoil for choice when it comes to the configs and doesn't leave a fight thinking, God, I wish I'd chosen that instead of that design. But no, there's plenty of options open on the table heading into a fight, so it should all go very well for Skynet as long as those wheels don't get too many hits.
In the Emerald Group, weighing in at 1,196 SGS, coming from Spain, it is Truncator, a towering rotary lifter with the racing stripes and flames. Will this spinning contraption of death throw its opponents out of the arena?
Truncator is a feisty and fiery machine. Its design inspired heavily by the 1990s Japanese drift car scene. It is a beautiful looking robot. The rotary lifter is incredibly interesting, and I think I've got to say my favourite part of it is the ring of fire that it can produce. Flamethrowers at the tips of each end of the lifter. It is a sight to behold. I cannot wait to see it fight.
I have to echo that. I think the ring of fire that comes from the tips of those lifters, absolutely gorgeous. It is stunning to see that.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing this ring of fire that you've been talking about. It's a stunning looking robot, very reminiscent of previous designs in the RRC, like Pendulum and Garadon, the robot design that I've fought a couple of times throughout my career. This Killdozer config, though, as impressive as it is, just looking at that, it reminds me of when you see kids in films wearing big coats to pretend that they're adults. It just looks a bit too big for the rest of the robot, but it's not what it looks like, is it? It's how it fares, how it performs. You never know. Well, I never know.
if you could take the idea of spectacle and massive robot and combine them together, I think you'd get this. This robot is wonderful to look at, and I think spectacle is just brought into every piece, every edge, every vertice of this machine. From the flaming ring to the just side panels. I mean, every little piece. You'd think it would be dull, but everything's just been neatly crafted and thought out. ZD has created like the Mona Lisa of rotary lifters here, and I'd just be sad to see it get ripped apart.
And next bot in the Sapphire group, another one from England, built by one of my co-commentators here, Black Hat. We have AJ Alman Flinger, a CO2-powered flipper weighing in at 1,191 SGS. It is hoping for a quick flip right out of the arena.
So the man behind the bot, AJ Allmendinger himself, coming off of a regular series championship win in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, hoping to follow the same footsteps. The design very inspired by the American-style flippers of BattleBots, and it's got a decent bit of flipping power. The other configs, the forks, they can really help with getting under other robots. Let's not forget the pole. Designed specifically to jam certain spinners in its group.
I think I really like this kind of like I don't want to say retro wavy, like pink and yellowish color scheme yet. I love it. I like this design. It's simple, but it's beautiful in its cosmetics. And if there is indeed one thing I am looking forward to, it's the stick. The stick to beat every robot with. I mean, if the flipper fails, the stick won't, you know, if you ask me. And I think that this robot, while it may not get any wins, it's definitely going to leave a lasting impression in the arena.
Oh, it's going to get wins, Josh. It's going to get wins.
I'll have you know it's going to get many wins.
Yeah, the poll is magnificent, as is the robot overall. I mean, AJ Allmendinger, we know that he came back to the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and he was a very established road course racer, but he's made a name for himself on the oval, so he is now an all-rounder, which this robot ought to be as well. But which of these designs is the road course setup, Rob?
I'd probably have to go give it to the forks. They're probably better off with elevation.
I do have to say, I think out of every robot with configs, this certainly has the most interesting one in the poll. I think it's going to be quite interesting watching it just splinter. But, you know, it could have a really unorthodox effect. Sometimes that unpredictability of a robot can win it a fight or two. And I think that might be what's going to happen with it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we're all dancing around the obvious here, I think. We're all trying not to say it, but I don't know.
He gets to be good.
As long as it can hit something, I think it'll be alright, yeah?
It gets into something, and then
It's just going to have to charge.
Stay back!
Yeah.
Keep away!
It's going to be a very entertaining fight, nonetheless.
And the next robot in the Topaz group, another robot that's progressed quite a lot over the last couple of years, Double O Reese's Demon Spirit from Wales. It's upgraded in recent times to a 4-bar electric lifter, and actually has two different configs available for this event, one designed to combat horizontal spinners, and the other quite simply a 4-bar lifter just intends to get under things and flick them up into the air. It should carry with it an upgrade in performance.
I love Double's machines. Double has made some quality bots, and this one I think is his pinnacle, is magnum opus, the one that is a tried and true testament to his growth in the RLC, much like the many of the robots like Swin and Botbuster. And Demon Spirit, a 4-bar lifter now. It's, I think, a very good control bar, and I think can also be very surprisingly durable when it comes up against spinners. I mean, especially with that horizontal config.
I think a lot of this field is made up of so much just evolution of robots. The first time Demon Spirit competed, it didn't have a weapon. It's moved on to have a rear hinge, and now the 4-bar. It's not just a gimmick. The 4-bar is really capable in certain circumstances. With it being an electric flipper, it is not as powerful as its counterparts, but there are benefits to it, and I think you're really going to see them when it fights.
This bot shows the growth of a member and a builder over the past 4 years that he's been a member of the RRC for. Demon Spirit has been a bot that Double has always come back to and continuously evolved. Whether it was the first version, it was just a rammer, then it went to a lifter, then a rear hinge flipper, and now it's settled on this fairly unique among flippers in the 4-bar design. I do think the 4-bar can give it a slight edge, as it's designed to throw opponents more away than it is to get height, so it can give that little bit of extra time for Double to position, get the next attack, and get that continuous chain of flips, and just out-control an opponent.
In the Emerald Group, weighing in 1,198 SGS from the USA, it is Gosling, a robot with plenty of bite in its beak and a spicy flamethrower on top. Will this bot peck the competition into submission?
Yeah, great looking robot with the flamethrower, with the nice crushing beak there as well, and the wings. Who doesn't love self-righting wings? Well, other robots with their nice damagey weapons might not love them, might even go for them and attack them, and if it loses those wings, makes self-righting a heck of a lot more difficult, but hopefully before any of its opponents get a chance to attack those wings, it'll have got a nice hold of them and been roasting them.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm exaggerating when I say this, but in terms of crushers with wings, Razor walked so Gosling could run. The flamethrower is such just a cool concept to add in terms of damage. Great design, the wedge is helpful. I love you can see the little teeth on that front wedge just to help catch it. It can definitely do a lot of damage. I want to say that beak can get high enough to where it can just grab a bot, weld onto it, lift it over the wall and toss it out. So if that can happen, I'll be surprised, but definitely one to fear.
Yes, I do have to agree with that. I think Gosling, as I said before with Quake, it can take advantage of the fact that some opponents do not armor the top of their robots that well. It will bite through, burn up all the internals on the inside of that flamethrower, and then just leave the bot completely stranded, unable to do anything.
I love Gosling. Gosling is such a small and compact individual. It's such a adorable and mischievous looking bit of malice here. It's got the crushing, like flame injecting weapon that's definitely going to make it a lot easier for it to just penetrate deep into its insides and touch around in its battery. Goodness gracious.
So next up we've got a robot from Ireland. In fact, a robot built by someone not too far away from me. It's Super Esports, and it's an interesting little robot with a couple of different configs, but the main things that it's got going for it's firstly 4 drums, not just 1, not just 2, but 4 drums and Mechanism drive. So it's a lot to take in with this robot.
Yes, Super Esports is my machine. I have put absolutely everything into the weapons. I have the most weapon power in the event across the 4 drums, each one weighing a little over 90 SGS. I'm hoping to just go in there, outmaneuver with the Mechanism drive, get quick KOs. I've got the wedge attachment to the front so I can switch that to match my opponent. Hopefully I'm just going to go in, get a couple quick KOs, and come out on top of most fights.
I think there's not much that needs to be said other than if you are in the arena, you are not winning against Super Esports. There's just nothing you can do, really, to destroy it before it destroys you. There are certain points that, like the rear, that can be damaged, but really, it's facing Super Esports is more of a durability test, and you're the one being tested.
Super Esports is this cheeky and dangerous machine. It's a robot that's, I think, the only one that's utilizing Omnidrive in the competition, which is, I mean, dangerous to begin with, since it can come at you from any angle and it can orient itself in any way possible to take advantage of, I suppose, your poor driving. It's a scary machine with drums on either side and a wedge to push you around. And of course it's got the anti-horizontal wedge to take on those very powerful and deadly horizontals and manipulate them around a bit.
Next up, also in the Topaz group from Taiwan, it's Two-Headed Death Penguin. Now, there's wide and there's wide, and this is 1,199 SGS of wide. And most importantly, it's not just a one-headed Death Penguin. That'd be bad enough. This is a two-headed Death Penguin. That's just unthinkable, unimaginable. You don't want to be in the arena with a two-headed Death Penguin. I'd hate to be a robot in the arena with the two-headed Death Penguin.
See, I think one of the strange trends in this tournament is the amount of animal-themed robots that we have. But to me, at least, there's none more dangerous than Two-Headed Death Penguin. As John said, it does have two heads, and with the amount of power they get biting down on the robot, they're just so damaging. You really have to look out. But from what I'm seeing with this robot, those axes are the biggest advantage that it has. You'd think that the wings, the width that they give, would be some sort of help, but it's really hard to tell. From my eyes, I'm not confident, but I'm just going to have to see how it goes when it gets to combat.
Two-headed Death Penguin. What I think just a silly machine. I love the gimmick of just this robot that effectively at the beginning of the match just widens itself. You are not really going to get around it when you're in front of it, but if you do manage to get around it, it's going to be quite difficult for the death-headed penguin to get a hold of you once again. I feel like this design is built to keep you in front of it, so I don't think I have any high hopes for it when something gets it from behind.
I do have to second that. I think it is going to be entirely how long can Two-Headed Death Penguin pivot and keep the opponent in front of it. I think once an opponent gets a good hit on it, it's going to be more than one hit. But if it can be well driven, I definitely see it winning fights, and I definitely see it just dominating in the control department. Our final bot in the Sapphire group, weighing in at the lightest in our field of 1,185 SGS, built by Ember or Black Dragon from the USA, we have the hydraulically powered flipper of Stardust. This is a unique type of flipper that is brand new, and let's see if this new technology can help an old design win some more fights.
Yeah, as you said, Foxy, it is a design that we've seen before, but that doesn't necessarily make it bad.
I want to say, in a way, if you kind of look at this design, it's got that freshness to it. That's still that early days of robotic creativity, and despite its simplistic kind of like Stardust logo, I love the spoiler. I love the sort of front wedge design here. I like how they've kind of incorporated the wedgelets into the design as well, making it a bit more difficult to kind of rip into those wedgelets and sort of strike them.
Yeah, I think what you've got here in Stardust is just a very reliable and solid design of a robot. It's nothing too adventurous, but it does have the creativity in its aesthetic.
I think there's plenty of surface area on the flipper that will really help it to get quite high and quite powerful flips.
I believe, to my knowledge, it has the most powerful flipper. It can get the furthest and get the highest flips on opponents.
As a whole, I think this design is very solid and built in the front. The back, of course, exposed wheels. Robots can definitely get into there and take them apart, but it follows a similar method of how long can it keep the opponent in front of it and before it sneaks behind it and strikes it where it doesn't want it to be hit.
I do think out of all the flippers, this one is going to be more of a glass cannon. I think if it can use those flips well and keep those flips consistent, keep the opponent unable to get enough ground to fight back, it's got a chance at winning any fight that's thrown at it.
Like Josh said, it's a very reminiscent of an early robot that any roboteer would come up with. Just something that's just stable and not too experimental, something that feels like a nice point to launch yourself off of, just like the flipper itself.
The penultimate bot in the Ruby group, aesthetically, one of my favorites. I wouldn't expect to see this in the arena. I'd expect to see it turning laps at a local racetrack and going very fast, but nevertheless, that is no detractor. It is powerful, it is Burnout. I cannot wait to see it fight.
Burnout, gorgeous machine, very well constructed, and one of the best to come out of the creative mind of Banan. It's very reminiscent, of course, to a racing motif, and its design is built to keep you on that flipper. I mean, those angled sides are going to sweep you in towards the center there, and that stopper at the front, while I think beautiful and almost kind of like, I suppose, reminiscent of like a Mustang with, like, you know, the engine out the top. It's just a very experimental and very well put together machine that has proven itself in many different matches prior to this competition. So nothing short of success will be expected from this machine.
Yeah, this is another of the robots in this event that I don't want to see sustaining any damage. It is far too good looking for that. I hope there's enough gas in the flipper for it to keep its opponent off the ground and keep the opponent's weapon well away from it. I don't want a scratch on Burnout. And as well, I hope it makes room noises. It looks like it makes room noises. I hope it makes room noises when it's driving around the arena. That's all I'm saying.
Despite the lack of room noises, the speed that this flipper has and the launch capacity that it has will definitely be able to destabilize and throw off its opponents. I categorize flippers into two halves. You got flippers, gentle little flip, more closer to a demon spirit that we talked about earlier, and then there's launchers. This is a perfect example of a launcher. It's going to flip you far away.
Yeah, as you were saying, Foxy, really, the flipper doesn't do much damage on its own, but the full damage that you're going to get after you've been flipped by Burnout is what's really going to challenge you. And as Red said, I believe it's a bonnet scoop. It works very uniquely as a catcher. Most of them are just tiny wedges. That is big, it's to the point, and it will stop you. And it may have the number 2 emblazoned on its flipper on the front, but I don't see it being anything short of first.
And the final robot in the Topaz group, a staple of RRC events for many years at precisely 1200 SGS, and brought to you by the mind of the chap sat at the end of the table there. It's Lemon, a full-body spinner. That citrusy bastard has been around for many a battle, dealing many a blow to many an opponent over many a battle.
Lemon was kind of like a thing where I just kind of like thought, what am I going to name a full body spinner? What am I going to base a theme on? And I went for a fruit theme for a while, and coming out of this fruit theme came Lemon, a machine that I never expected to be around for so long, and yet it's still here, and I'm still trying to improve its design.
There's been a lot of robots in this competition that we've said have shown the progression and evolution of the builder, and I think Lemon is the top of the mountain. It's the peak. I want to say it's been here since 2016, so that's quite a while of pure evolution, progression, improvements.
I think definitely from my time in the RRC, Lemon has been a bot that I've seen improve and evolve. In this field, we have a lot of brand new and rookie designs, and then right at the other end of the field, we have Lemon. I think it's one to watch, and considering Red's wonderful character that goes with it, it's gonna be both a spectacle from competitive side of view and just the performance. Lemon is a character first and a competitor second.
So the final robot in the Ruby group and in the tournament has to be one of my favorites. I've said that about quite a lot, but this one just has a special place in my heart. Game Over, I think, is absolutely wonderful. I believe the first appearance in Roblox Robot Combat for the owner, part of the Rampage family. I just love it. I love how simple it looks and yet how effective it is. I really want to see it do well.
This robot is adorable. It's effectively the start of something new, something bright, the start of a robot combat career in Roblox. And this design, while simplistic, it is solid.
I think Josh said it best. It's a great starting point. It's a great entry point to Roblox robot combat. And it would be a great robot to see how it evolves and how it moves forward from this event. However well it does in this event, there will be battles that expose its strengths or its weaknesses, and they can be taken on board in moving this robot forward. But we do have to look at the present, and while it does have its weaknesses, I think it does still have potential if driven right and if there are certain factors that go its way. Lovely to see new people joining the RRC and the kind of robots that they start their hopefully long and successful careers with.
This is definitely the foundations of a new builder's career when it comes to the RRC. And as a starting point, I think it's a very good one. It's a very simple bot at its core. Four-wheel drive vert, as we have seen, is a very meta design, but that doesn't mean that just because it's meta, it's generic. It's got a wonderful theme. It might be quite simple in design, but I do think, despite that, it'll be very effective in the arena.
And that is all of our competitors, and what a mighty fine lineup it is. I do hope you will enjoy the rest of this comp when it comes to you. You will follow through. If there are any bots in your mind that you think are going to come out on top in their groups, do leave a comment below and let us know what you think. I would love to see what people are thinking will be the top of each group, and maybe the top of the whole event. As always, I've been Foxii. These have been my three co-hosts, John, Rob, and Brad. Thank you, and good night.